Hello, it is I once more, Rob, here in the Lair of OmnusI, continuing on with Phase 3 of the unboxing video for Cool Mini or Not's Massive Darkness from their Kickstarter, which I backed and has finally arrived after months of being late. But we're going to do a proper unboxing video. The first video was on the main shipping box and showing everything that was inside. Also the Lightbringer things, all the bonuses that were exclusively add-on content for those who backed the Kickstarter. A lot of nice stuff in there. The second one was on the main game and the other things that came from that everybody who backed the Kickstarter got. The Troglodytes expansion and the chest and pillar set. So, the last thing that we have are all the other expansions. Now, I've backed everything. All the content that was there, I backed. The only thing I didn't get were the add-ons, like the plastic tokens. The cardboard ones that came are fine. Extra dice. While I do love extra dice, the ones that came are fine. But when it came to extra miniatures and extra choices for my players, I went everything. And honestly, part of it was an investment to make this video. The other part is I've got a lot of miniatures now. Even more. Almost all of them had something compelling about them. So let's get on with it, well, shall we? Now, there are two types of these expansions. There are the Heroes and Monsters sets, which include 3 new hero molds and a boss monster. And the enemy box, which gives another race of monsters, including minions, bosses, agents, and some sort of a wandering monster representing that race. Once again, I'm going to do what I've done with the other expansions. We're going to zoom down so that I can give close-ups on these. I already opened all the boxes, so this should go a bit quicker. And we're going to go with the enemy boxes first, so that we can see all the new toys that I'm going to have to play with. And also things I can't wait to start having my players come across in this game. So, let's draw you in. Alright, we're going to start out again with the Reptosaurians, the lizard folk of the game. And again, these are the first times that I'll be opening them, true unboxing videos. Again, we start with the cards, which will come in importantly with the game. But we're not dealing about the statistics of the game right now. We want to look at all these cool minis and tell the company if they're cool minis or not. So far we have been very happy with the quality of the miniatures that we've seen. Everything is intact. The figures look great. Now we'll go to the next step. And again, I'm trying to be a little ginger about this. Because I want this to show my friends how it looked in the box, number one, and number two, I don't have the storage space to safely put all these other ways. So, okay, first of all, we have the big guy. He's in the classic anime running with his hands behind him pose. I guess they did that to try to cement up the figure so that it's together. Otherwise, his leaning forward would leave his back end stretched out further. But he looks like a alligator went total Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle with these big spines along his back. A little something of a stegosaur aesthetic. His face is very chunky. It looks like those jaws could really do some damage, but his arms are massive. His claws are pretty impressive. This will be a fun character for the players to come across, I think. But I can also imagine this in a variety of role-playing situations as something that the players would definitely have to respect. The individual Reptosaurians, we have a warrior with a crude sword. And these guys have a very nice lizardly aesthetic. The faces are definitely lizard-like. They have a tail underneath their skirting. battle dress, battle harness, what have you. The face is, it's nice. It's very lizardish. I don't know how much detail I'm going to get, but all in all, their basic frontline guys are pretty nice. If this is their king, I could believe it. Two very nasty looking axes. And he's got a look of, again, he's confident that he's going to mess you up, which is a lot easier to do when you've got a whole bunch of expendable minions in front of you. Looks like he's wearing a girdle of armor, as well as some chest plate, shoulder plates. Very well equipped to, again, mess somebody up. I like that the axes aren't just carbon copies of each other. There's two different styles. Either it looks like something he's looted or maybe had made for him, but they look pretty cool. Then we have, I'm guessing they're shaman. Still uses a sword in one hand, but he's got a rod in the other. And not as heavily armed, although he does have a breastplate. I'd say he's about as heavily armed as the boss. Still has that tail sticking out with a little ring around it. And another sword at his belt. Yeah, looks like he's ready to head out and kick some butt. I like the detailing on it again. Looks very nice. I think this is the agent. Again, two swords in kind of a odd pose. If it's in mid-battle, either he's blocking or he's just ripped that sword up against somebody. His other sword low and away. Maybe he's blocking for his legs. It's kind of hard to say. Not a terrible pose. In mid-action, obviously. And his weapons look like they've seen some work, but they're nice. His clothes are more casual. He's not wearing the heavy armor that the king and the shaman were wearing. So I think, yeah, I suspect he's the agent. Yeah, nice figure. And the second wave, as they are sneaky lizardy types, they have ranged attackers as well. A bit more tape on this one than I anticipated. Tape everywhere. Okay. And their ranged guys are blowgunners. They're just set up for firing wave after wave of toxic darts at your players. Again, his tail is very prominent, sticking out underneath his utilikilt. And face is a little light on detail. Nothing too serious. But again, it's a decent figure. The belting and everything, his gear is all well detailed and well defined. His face is just a little smudged, but all told, 12 of the blowgunners, and one boss, one shaman, one agent, and 6 hand fighters, and of course you can't forget the big guy, because nobody would want to forget the big guy. He's pretty huge. So, Reptosaurians, as advertised. Very nice. And, let's go back. Next, the Elementals. Now, the Elementals had a little story behind them. In the molds that they showed, everybody agreed that the molds looked cool, but this pack was the most expensive of the lot, and it only had 4 figures in it, unlike the other ones, which were less and had more. Now, I had a player in my group who fell in love with the molds. He saw them, thought they were really cool. I was not going to get the Elementals. I didn't see the value. He liked them so much, he fronted the whole cost himself. So, technically, if he wants them, he can have the whole set himself if he wanted. But in part of the game, they are the Water Elemental with his huge hooked staff. He is made out of a single giant wave, which is kind of cool. It's very cool, I should say. His arm, it looks like the keel of a ship, down to the plating. Kind of a dark elven aesthetic to that. And I should say his staff, because it looks like it's entirely one solid length of, well, water is kind of a strip, magically enchanted water to make it a long lash out of it with kind of a hooked sickle end. Being made out of water, it's, you know, one could say that that would be a pretty effective weapon, assuming he has control over all parts of it and can keep it fairly firm. That is one of the biggest of these lots. The Air Elemental is, oops, kind of flying at you in action pose. Female figure, long knotted rope of hair in the back, wearing a cloak slash cape slash robe over one sleeve, and looks like she's conjuring up some sort of a storm in her hands. Otherwise the attire is fairly light and looks mostly human. Looks like she's wearing pantaloons similar to a genie, so that may be the aesthetic they're going for there. Again, she's a rather small, delicate mold, only held onto the base by this contact point in the bottom. So she's going to be one we'll have to take good care of, so it doesn't get broken. Contrast her to the Earth Elemental. Earth Elementals usually look big and blocky and crude, and this one is no exception. The large torso and chest, the rather crude looking face, as well sculpted. This looks very good. And he's holding a chunk of building that he's definitely looking forward to smashing into somebody. Bear in mind, all the monsters in this are part of the darkness. They are all evil. So he is definitely looking at smacking somebody. Good detailing, very nice looking figure. And finally, the Fire Elemental. It looks like what they did for him is they constructed a cage of iron for the spirit to move around. And everything is very fiery. This is the one out of all the lot that I'm probably looking forward to painting the most. I can't wait to contrast the black of the iron cage around it with the flames and everything that are going on everywhere. The reds, the yellows, the oranges that I'm going to be able to draw into this figure. I'm really looking forward to. And making sure he looks as properly powerful as possible. Again, huge trunk, huge torso, smaller legs, but again, it looks like he's ready to go and maul somebody. Now, the other criticism that's been leveled against the Elementals is that, for the most part, they are small compared to what you commonly think of as a party-fighting monster. I would concur that most of the figures are on the small side. The Water Elemental is pretty broad, but I think my player is going to be pretty impressed and pretty happy with his investment. They do look good. The aesthetic looks great. The sculpts are excellent. But again, unless they knock the price down, $10 a miniature, I wouldn't exactly call it a great value, although it is a welcome addition to the game. Next, the Ratlings. And in your game, you can call them what you like, Ratlings, Skaven, what have you. Even Were-Rats. Again, the cards. Now, Ratlings are not going to be huge bruiser types. They're going to have a different aesthetic completely from the Troglodytes, a different aesthetic from the Reptisaurians, and one that I really like, because most people have their own feeling about rats. Next to spiders, they are probably one of those creatures out there that most people may not have a great feeling for. Unless you have, raised them as pets or something like that. So, they make for a good inhuman monster race. In this case, these little guys we have a wandering monster for them. He is the Brute. Spiky armor? Check. Kind of a nasty sickle / reverse sickle double weapon? Check. Not as practical looking here to slash yourself up a bunch, but yeah, okay. Hooked bladed knife in the other hand? Check. He looks like he's ready to go and murder somebody in a subway. Face is a little stocky and chunky. Body is more broadly built and muscular than any of the other ratlings will be. So he is their wandering monster. Not huge, but solid. The Rattling Agent. The only thing I'm not crazy about with this build, I like how they have the tails prominent. The face is kind of squished. He's got more of a mousy face, more than a rat face. I think they kind of shortened the nose a bit too much. I would have drawn that out. He almost looks like an armadillo face. But again, 2 weapons. I'm thinking this is the agent. And yeah, his pose and everything makes him stand out. I think he'll be a nice addition. The Shaman. Now this is a fun character. He's got that long, branchy, almost looks like a broom, although I suspect that is also supposed to be on fire. He is a nasty looking customer, really thin and with all of his spell component pouches and fetishes, and yeah, he's long flowing hair down his back, or maybe he just has a hairy back. Kind of in a hunched pose, as if stalking his enemy and watching him and looking for weaknesses. And of course, rats don't like to fight up front if they can avoid staying out of danger, avoid danger by shooting from a distance. So we have rat crossbowmen for the rat folk. And the crossbows look good. Nice sculpt on those. The figures themselves look a little bit readier than the Brute, certainly. But they, again, have an aggressive pose. Good detailing. Again, the face is a little on the shorter side. I think I would prefer the rat details to be drawn out a little bit more, but it's not bad. Not bad at all. The boss, I'm guessing, uses a pair of flails. I like flails. To me, they're one of the better weapons because they're hard to block and they use momentum and leverage and everything to do great damage without having to be all that strong. You just have to have the endurance to be able to use it quite a bit. He's got this spiky thing coming out of his head that doesn't look like a helmet of any sort. He looks kind of like a rattling unicorn. An interesting design choice. Not a huge fan of that look, but it's different. Maybe he has a mohawk. I'm going to have to look at the picture on that before I decide how I'm going to paint it. He's wearing a breastplate armor. He's got pauldrons on his shoulders, and that's what makes me think he's the boss. There's several of the crossbowmen, crossbow rats, what have you. So there's 2, 4, 6 of them. And then you have your minions. These are a bit better equipped than your average Ratman's going to be. Breastplate armor, a small shield, and a nasty little hooked scimitar. They are in an aggressive pose again. Looks like his mouth is open in challenge. Detailing is nice. Again, he's got that spiky thing coming out of his forehead. Maybe it's a mutant blessing from the dark gods or some such. The darkness, what have you. But all in all, very solid, aggressive pose, nice tail. And There are 12 of them. So they are well represented in a fight. So 12 and 8, 22 figures. Solid. And that is the monster boxes, enemy boxes. So then we're next going to take a look at the hero and monster box. Alright, back again. Now we've got the enemy boxes down, all 3 of them. It's time to go into the hero and monster sets. So, the first one we'll do is Noble Warriors versus the Cockatrix. Okay, so we have a pad of the Noble Warrior class sheet. Defense, Protector, Taunt, so they're going to be a tank. And the cards. And here are the characters. Now, the first thing I can see, the Cockatrix is not massive, which is actually good. I wanted him to be more size scaled to about the size of the D&D Cockatrice. And while he's huge, he's going to be a monster Cockatrice. It's nothing too egregious. Alright, so, Star of the Hour, the Cockatrice. Cockatrix looks pretty good. It's got that chicken beak, but it's kind of hooked a little bit. Looks pretty vicious. It's got a rill up its back, possibly feathers. Looks a little scaly, but no, those look like those are feathers. Long lizard-like tail. The myth of the Cockatrice is that it's how was it? Snake egg hatched by a chicken. I can't remember. But anyhow, the rest of it, chicken legs, chicken wings, evil look. This thing will be, again, a lot of fun to paint, and looks pretty sinister. After that, we have a little dwarf gal, sword, shield. Looks like she will be a tough defender, tough fighter. We have, yes, our barbarian gal who is opposed to clothing. We were going to have at least one cheesecake character for this. So long legs, long body, minimal clothing, 2 swords. She is in kick butt mode. Furry cloak to show off her barbarianness. They kind of understated a little bit. I thought before that she was a lot chestier in the pictures. She looks athletic more so in the final build. I like her. She's nice. Might feel a little dirty about painting her, but yeah, okay. And then we have the noble elf with his long spear, shield. It's nice to have a fighter who uses a shield, something other than a sword. Crested helm. Very nice looking figure. Big fan of this one. Can't remember the name, but yeah, he looks very good. Very clean looking figure. So that is the Noble Warriors versus the Cockatrix. Next we have the Sorcerers versus Lord Tusk, or as they're kind of calling him, Lord Tuskless. As you can see, the pronounced tusks of the pictures, but I've been told that the actual figure himself does not have tusks anymore. So, oh yeah, okay. Well, I'm no different, but we'll see. The Sorcerer pad, again, 20 sheets. Sorcerer, again, more your aggressive combat spells. The artifact is in the deck with all the cards that are appropriate. For the 3 heroes and Lord Tusk. Two pieces of tape hold it together, blah, blah, blah. I am up to defeating their pieces of tape. Alright, and then we get to Lord Tuskless. Lord Tusk, he's got a hood. It's amazing he can see through said hood to do anything. But his ridiculously oversized weaponry those cleavers are not meant for cuddling. So he clearly has the offensive ability. And as an ogre, he's got the big bulk, huge muscles, no tusks, no tusks at all, just a big mouth, rawr. That's unfortunate, but it's not. It's hardly crushing. He's still a very good-looking model, and actually, most of my figures don't really have orcs with pronounced tusks. He'll do, and those weapons are ludicrously big, which is fun. We have an elf with a full helm, sword and shield for one of the heroes. Not really much of a sorcerer look, but solid. With elves, could be male or female. The legs kind of suggest to me that she might be female, but I'm not entirely certain. The mage version of it looks a bit deranged. He's got his arms out, come at me bro wizard pose with his staff. Looks like he's relishing casting some big spell and doing some damage. Again, nice sculpt, nice design, looks really good. And then we have a boy assassin character to go along with the assassin whisper, or the thief whisper. Again, sword in one hand, looks like ready to bury it in somebody's ribcage. Mask, cloak, the whole shadowy figure. Again, very well detailed. Everything looks very solid. Very nice figures. Looking back in hindsight, you know, because in these things I harp about the value, and yeah, these packs were, I can't remember if they were $28 or $32, something like that. For 4 figures, it was a bit steep. The gameplay elements bring it a little bit closer. So I'm not sure if I'm going to be getting full value out of all of these. But they're nice. It's nice to have extra choices. Having an entire class that your players now have access to is good too. This is the Warrior Priests versus the Spear Maiden Cyclops. The Spear Maiden Cyclops is the second figure I was looking most forward to. So the Warrior Priest sheet, again. Suspecting it's somebody who can both heal the rest of the party, which will be very handy, as well as going out and kicking some butt. So, I mean, their artifact says the first time the hero would be wounded in each of his turns, prevent all wounds. So you get a buffer of an entire strike. And here, wow, that figure is big. Alright, this is one where I kind of think we'll be getting our money's worth out of this figure. Because it is, she's large. She's a plus-sized gal. Alright. Here we go. She is, yeah. Now, I like that they've got her in a good tactical pose. She's using the shield to defend most of her midsection. She's using the shield over that with the huge reach that this thing has. That's a good-looking fighting pose for her. She's not clothed particularly well. She's got just covering for her chest, skirting in the front, not much on the back. This is going to be another one I'm going to be a little embarrassed about painting, but, you know, she's stocky, and her look, she's not there to cuddle. She's there to kill somebody. So, all in all, she's a impressive-looking character. Big shoulder pauldron. Again, all defense in the front. It would have been nice if they would have given her something for her legs. Give her some sort of a greave down there. But, no, all in all, she's a nice character. And her folks, The warrior priests involve elf, short sword, or mid-sized sword, lozenge-shaped shield, winged helm. So she could be a warrior priestess. Looks like she's a she. Hello. So that's the first offering. And again, sword, shield, pretty standard fantasy stuff. Now, this one kind of moved out of position, so the staff is a little bent. But again, we have another flaming staff. Horns on the head. I'm not sure if that's a headdress affectation or if she's actually part satyr or a tiefling variant or something. Fairly conservative skirting. All in all, interesting sculpt. I kind of look forward to seeing the card and see everything that's going on there. But again, it's a nice fantasy type character with a lot of interest points in it, looking at it. Doesn't fit in the spot so well because it's slid out in packaging, but that's very, very minor. And then finally we have probably the person who is the exemplar for the warrior priest with his flail or holy water slinger, aspergillum I believe it's called, and a mace in the other hand, armored, breastplate, greaves, pauldrons, armored all over except for his head. Again, his bald head is wide open. He kind of looks like a troglodyte, the way that they've modeled the troglodytes, but nope, he's your warrior priest. And of course, because of the way the game goes, you can choose whatever class you want while playing him. You can make him a pit fighting gladiator if you wanted to. So right now my cat is trying to get into some of the boxes she doesn't fit into. That's, if you hear any crashing, that's what that's from, which is funny enough. Okay, I am looking at the picture on the side of the box, and it does look like those things on top of her head are just part of her costume. They're bright red, kind of tied up, but I don't know, we'll see. The last one, last gig. The Blood Moon Assassins versus the Hierophants. Your assassins are all going to be about stealth and backstabbing. That's their thing. The Hierophant got bigger than I thought, mostly because of this huge trunk thing it's got. Alright. The Hierophant. Well, elephant guy. Looks pretty vicious. The tusks are kind of segmented to look more infernal. The tusk itself is clawed at the end and looks like it can be used for vicious attacks as well as anything. The ears are as bat-like as an elephant's. Is elephantine. So yeah, that looks pretty vicious. The hands are oversized with a huge claw instead of a finger in the middle. Let's see that. And that's on both of them. Just handling this thing, you can feel the pokey bits all over. Again, with the kind of mockery of the prayer beads around the neck and the large skull around the belting. He looks like a twisted version on the Hindu elephant god. I think it's Hanuman, or no, Hanuman's a monkey. Ganesh? I think it's Ganesh. I'll have to look into that. But Blood Moon Assassins, we've got somebody with a pair of curved swords. Kind of scimitarish. A little bit like a cutlass, honestly. Loose clothing, as you're going to find with the assassin types. Back with a bow and arrows, which is kind of cool. So showing that ready for ranged and hand-to-hand. But of course that's going to vary depending on your starting gear. And now you have somebody who's masked, pair of daggers. This is going to fit into the assassin thing very well. Kind of her, the back of her cloak, which is belted at the waist, is kind of fanning out behind. It's in an action pose as she's preparing to plunge those daggers into somebody. A good assassin miniature, totally. And then we have a gal who is one larger sword, kind of more of a hand-and-a-half sword, or bastard sword, as they're sometimes called. She is also masked, however, and seems to fit in well with the Blood Moon Assassins. She just prefers to do all of her work with one big sword. She has the cloak behind her, and she is in a mode like she is ready to stealth along and then stick somebody with that. So, fine detail. I like it. She's very nice. Apparently the Blood Moons are mostly female. Although the first one with the two swords might be male. It'll bear looking into. But yeah, those are the characters for Blood Moon Assassins versus the Hierophants. Alright, so that's all of it. Back up to me. Here we are, ultimately at the final question. Massive Darkness, the Kickstarter. Was it worth it? Well, I can tell you that it was the most expensive board game I've ever paid for. I know some games can be rather expensive, but I've always settled for less pricey models. Although if you took all the money that I have sunk into Munchkin, for instance, I've exceeded the amount that I've paid for Massive Darkness. Munchkin also doesn't give me any figures that I can use for my other gaming pursuits. And, you know, they both scratch different itches. So as far as the game itself, this isn't going to be a formal Omnus critic, although I probably should do that. But from what I can say right now, from having played the game a few times, it's a solid game. It's not genius. There are other games that have done similar mechanics and things. I've seen similar systems that give artificial rules for how creatures can behave so that no one person is bound to playing them. As far as mechanics go, it's just like my Ghostbusters game that I have, board game that works in similar fashion. You control the Ghostbusters, you're trying to bust ghosts. In this one, you play the heroes, you're trying to bust the Massive Darkness. So there are strong similarities to those two in terms of mechanics. Now, again, the total package was almost $300 for everything that we got. Were the figures worth it? Yes, the figures are excellent. There's not a single one that has poor detailing, and only a few that have mediocre detailing. All of them have very good to high quality detailing. The plastic is pretty excellent. They feel solid in the hands. I think they'll be pretty durable unless some chicanery happens. I like to use a different color plastic for the heroes, although once they're painted, we'll be fine. I like the roaming monsters. I think they are a treat that I will be using both in Massive Darkness and in other games as well. The Lily Arch, for example, is a great analog to the Marilith demon from Dungeons and Dragons. The giant spider, well, there's times that you can use a giant spider for just about any game, from Star Wars to, again, Dungeons and Dragons, or some of the other creatures, the orcs, the goblins, the dark dwarves. By having a lot of creatures with high quality molds, that I have multiple creatures of the same, helps to fill out an army, helps to build out a scenario where you want multiple creatures to give the heroes a sense of satisfaction at taking out waves of lesser creatures, or just to increase the threat by having a large number. Tactically, I generally like to have encounters that have fewer number of creatures, but sometimes you really want to impress that it's a large group. Perhaps something that could be settled with a few fireballs or something, but something the group still has to tactically deal with. And I also find that of the ones that they selected, many of them are of high quality as far as selection of the kinds of creatures that I would want. Orcs, goblins, the troglodytes could possibly pass as bugbears or hobgoblins, I suppose. They would also work in my Viking campaign for just good barbarian figures. The Reptosaurians will be great for lizard men for a long time. The Ratlings I really like because I want to use them for my upcoming Warhammer 40k game for a Skaven Menace. So, yes, I am excited about the possibilities that this game opens for me. I don't regret the purchase. I think that these figures will be excellent, and it's going to give me even more practice in painting. I like the poses, I like the figures. The game itself is solid. It's good. We'll use it on occasion. I certainly believe that. I also like the fact that it's randomized so that I can play alongside my players, and that's a great thing. So, is it worth it? Yes, the game is worth the money that I paid for it. Was it worth the time? I feel cheated because, honestly, had they just had a more realistic ship date, this whole thing wouldn't have been a problem. But the anxiety that it built up and the plans that I had had to have it in place so that I could have everything nicely painted and addressed for the upcoming cons that I've got, I do feel cheated in that. And for that, I'm still blaming Cool Mini or Not for missing their ship date and making me a less than completely satisfied customer. Game? Solid. Recommend it to anybody who's buying it. Especially if you can find it on a good sale. You can get a ton of great miniatures. The packs, the enemy packs are great. As long as they keep the prices reasonable so you're not paying more than $2 a miniature. I think the Ratlings, the Reptisaurians are a good deal. The Troglodytes are good if you're looking for some good Hillman Barbarians. The Elementals are not a good value. The molds are nice. The figures are fairly small, and for $10 a piece, I can't say I recommend them. I'm glad to have them in our collection, however, so that's fine. It gives more selection for monsters when we use them. As far as the hero versus monster selection, the monsters are very nice. I like the Hierophant. I like the Shield Maiden Cyclops. I like those figures. They're fine. The heroes, I've got plenty of hero figurines. Adding extras does give my players more selection, which is nice. Having an extra class is nice. Is it the value? Was the value worth it? That's the closest thing to not hitting the value of the elementals. And even then, it's splitting hairs. I'm still glad I got them. From what I got as a bonus for the Kickstarter, yeah, I'm pleased with that. I got some really good figures, and I trust that anybody else who uses those kind of figures, the Overseer, the Hellbrute, the different characters, you've got some great things to play around with. So, but I am Rob here in the Lair of OmnusI. That was Massive Darkness, and a long time coming. Glad I made the video. Thank you for watching. If you're interested, I will probably be doing a playthrough of a solitaire game of Massive Darkness. It claims it can run one player. I'd like to test that. So, hope you keep tuning in to me in my Lair of OmnusI. And I hope you have many, many profitable ventures. Thanks for watching. Farewell.